Welcome to Six Tackles with Gus, episode 2 for season 2026. We're here thanks to our great friends at Tab, and we're still here at the locker room at Sydney Olympic Park. How's Vegas going, Gus?
I'm not there yet.
Well, you will be when
be.
you're listening to this, because we've recorded 2 episodes in one to fill the gap while Gus is over there in Vegas, part of the huge throng of rugby league support generally, but a big contingent of Bulldogs fans over there as well. Coming up, we're going to have a look at how the top half of the ladder from last year is shaping up with player movements, and Gus is going to tell us what it takes to put together your schedule for Vegas, because it is a huge undertaking. Plenty to get through and some predictions as well. I'm not going to nail you down to give us premiership winners and stuff.
Right.
I'll just get some general
Well, that's good, because I wouldn't have a clue at this stage.
It's wide open, isn't it? Perth Bears. Now, you mentioned in our previous episode that competition for players is probably as hard as it's ever been, and obviously the inclusion of Perth coming up from 2027 has been a main contributing factor towards that. They've picked up Toby Sexton. They've got Harry Newman, who played for England in the Ashes. Luke Smith, I think he was a Bulldog, wasn't he?
He was a Bulldog last year, yeah.
Isaac Fasul-Malaawi, Liam Henry. They're talking about maybe Scott Sorensen, Sean Russell, Josh Curran, good signing. Tyron Wishart, Nick Meaney, the 2 big names who have gone there from Melbourne. Still a lot of holes to fill there for Perth, which isn't easy.
No, and you know, they're paying a premium for players too. I mean, what happens is, usually in these circumstances, player managers smell fresh money, and there's been a number of them jumping on a plane, going across there and having a look at the setup and talking to the Perth about their future. And not just first grade talent, but kids of all ages and recruitment kids and development kids as well. So I would say that they've probably signed a few more that they haven't announced yet, and there have been some commitments from others. I think that a lot of their focus will not just only be on 2027, but also 2028, when players are coming off contract at the end of that season, and what player managers have to offer them as well. Wouldn't be easy starting from scratch. I mean, the Dolphins found that in the early stages, but by the time they got on the field, they were very, very competitive. And
Won their first game.
I expect Perth will be exactly the same. It's exciting for the game to be on that side of the country, and for Perth to have an NRL team, and it's going to make big changes right throughout the league. Every time we bring a new team in, it does dilute the talent and spread the talent out a little bit further. Puts more pressure on your development systems, puts more pressure on salary caps and negotiations, gives players and player managers more options. Player managers are very much in the box seat when it comes to negotiations these days. All power is with them. And on the back of that is the prospect of PNG not far behind. How many current NRL players would be targeted by PNG? I think PNG will remain hopeful that they've got local talent that's going to fill most of their roster spots. That's always been the idea.
They're going to have to.
It's always been the aim of their government up there, that the PNG team in the NRL represented the PNG people, and I think that's one that they'll want to support. So it's going to be a slow boil over a long period of time. But Perth, we've already seen the effects on the market. There are options available for players. There are a lot of players that have been approached that have said no at this stage. They're still wanting to make it in the NRL with their club here, but particularly young players that are just on the verge of playing NRL or might have played a handful of games, they're good buys for a team like Perth across there, and they're the ones that they've spoken to. Not all of them have made a commitment. They've preferred to try and stay closer to home and make it here if they can, rather than take the risk with their career at this stage to go across there. But the types of players that they will get will be the players that are looking for more regular time on first grade, maybe more regular time in one position rather than being a utility role.
Wishart, great example of that.
Yeah, and then, and obviously being able to earn more money, because if you're a utility at one club and a bench player at one club, but you're a starter over there, that's more money, and that's their career's only short. So it's good for the players, and it's a challenge for Perth. The Perth people, even before they started, they came over and saw us all in clubland and told us, sat down with our rosters and looked at players that were coming off contract, and we were quite open with them about that.
Really? That's good of you.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to do that. They're going to talk to your players anyway, so you may as well have a relationship with them.
What are you hearing about feedback with respect to how the club's set up, facilities, and any other talk about the Perth Bears generally?
I think any sporting franchises in Perth have always been pretty successful and pretty well resourced and well equipped, and I can't imagine Perth being any different. Yeah, so I haven't heard any negativity around that whatsoever. I think it's a risk that an established player might might say no to go across there at this stage with their career. Depends what stage of your career you're in. Like a young fellow like Liam Henry has established himself with the Panthers, won a premiership there. He can get infinitely more money with a club like Perth as a start-up like that than he would probably get playing with all those superstars out in Penrith. So it's a good progression for him. And other clubs here, the salary cap's pinching with a lot of clubs here. If you've had a bit of success, the value of your players goes up, competition for those players, so your money doesn't stretch as far. You've got to replace it with younger players and cheaper players at the back end of your roster. So there's always a prospect of players earning more money by going to a new franchise like that. And they'll be professional. I haven't heard any negativity whatsoever that they'll be under-resourced or under-coached or they won't be prepared. It'll be a different type of lifestyle with all the travel and everything that goes with it. But there'll also be a home ground advantage that'll play heavily in their favour as well. So what they lose on one perspective, they get it back in another.
Now, Gus, you're currently in Vegas, although you're here.
Yep.
Take us through, and now you've got the opportunity, having prepared the Bulldogs to go and undertake this Vegas season opener. How much goes into it? How big a undertaking has this been for the club?
Extraordinary. A lot of work from a lot of people. I guess this probably it virtually started the first year when they called for applications for people that were interested in going to Perth. And of course, the big guns jumped straight away, your Roosters and your Broncos and South Sydneys and those sort of clubs that wanted to be on that stage. We took the view, we didn't have a very strong side at that time, that if ever we did take this plunge to go to Las Vegas, we wanted to go there with a strong team, with a good hope of performing well on that stage. We wanted to represent our club well on this sort of platform, which is very, very high profile for our game. And of course, we wanted to see how teams went there and how it was all done. The first year was extraordinary. I don't know how big an impact it was over there in America the first year, but it was certainly a massive impact back here. And we saw that from broadcast figures. The opening of our game to be on that stage in Las Vegas, in that stadium, was just phenomenal for our game. Such a great promotion for the game back here. Whatever their goals are about playing these games in America is a long way down the track. That's a very slow boil over a long period of time. But we wanted to see how that went. The second year, when we were building our team and becoming more competitive, we thought, well, maybe in year 3 or year 4, it would be something we could well consider. We also saw how popular it was with the fans of all clubs to watch the games in those areas. And we felt from our club's perspective, our brand needed to be in that event, that we wanted the Bulldog fans represented across there. It's a big club. It's a passionate club. We have passionate supporter base. We wanted them to have the opportunity to enjoy what they'd seen these other clubs enjoy. So we wanted to get ourselves strong enough and well enough equipped that we could go across and do this well. That being the case, the board approved for myself and a number of the board members to go to Las Vegas last year and experience everything that Las Vegas had to offer with the rugby league preparation during that week, the events, everything that happened around, the training facilities, the training venues, the weather, the meals, managing the downtime of the players because it's a long wait, it's a different sort of environment and lifestyle over there in Las Vegas. And then to see again how the teams reacted last year that went there, and I thought the teams that went there across last year handled it really well. And then to see how they come back and recovered and performed during the course of the season. And we were going to sort of make a decision halfway through last year whether we wanted to be that team. But we got over there for only a few days and made up our mind virtually, no, we want to be a part of this.
What convinced you so quickly?
It's just fascinating. It's tremendous. Yeah, we needed our fans to be there to experience it. I didn't want to go another year without the Bulldogs being represented on that stage. And our board felt exactly the same way. With the Dragons, who have been great rivals of the Bulldogs for a number of years and two very, very big clubs, they were there at the same time. Andrew Lancaster, who sits on the board here at Channel 9, he's the chairman of St George, was there as well, doing exactly what we were doing. And we actually went to Peter Van Landy's, the two of us together, and said, look, we want to play each other here
Well, that's
in
great.
Las Vegas next year. So that didn't guarantee us the spot,
No.
but it certainly was a strong case that would be a good way to open the season.
It's
with
a
those,
great traditional
those
rivalry
two
to start
great
the
clubs.
season.
Yeah, so and the two clubs have worked pretty much hand in hand on a lot of levels with that, around home and away, because we're going to play the Dragons later this year at Allianz Stadium in a neutral venue. So we're going to play each other twice at neutral venues and share a lot of the commercial interest from both games, so that we could make this possible and make a better case to the NRL. It wasn't decided for some months later that we would be chosen, but both clubs put through a very strong case and worked together in that application about doing that. So right from the time we sort of got there and saw it, you could just feel with our board and our management we were keen to do it. Thankfully, we came home and put together a really strong season. Everything, all the figures in our club, and I'm not on the commercial side of it, but our administration do such a wonderful job. Our sponsorship, our membership, our merchandising, our ticketing, our season tickets, the crowds that we're getting here in New South Wales, in Sydney for these games has been tremendous. The Bulldogs, we feel the perspective of our club has changed dramatically over the last 2 or 3 years. So it's wonderful timing for us now to go across there. It's very much a business trip. It's, our team's got a business to do and our corporate team's got a business to do. We're taking a big contingent. The club has actually taken every one of our staff members, all of our administrative staff members, all of our recruitment staff, everyone that's involved in our club is going. The only ones that are remaining behind are the ones that have got to play in trials or junior rep games on the weekend, but everyone else in the organisation has gone. Our club has been very, very generous. We're also taking 26 players so the coach can have an opposed session in preparation for the game. So the club has left no stone unturned. It's not a money-making exercise for us. It's about getting across to Vegas, enjoying the once-in-a-lifetime experience, taking our fans and those that want to travel across to a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and hopefully play well for the ones that can't afford to do it and are sitting back here at home watching the season opener where the Dragons and the Bulldogs open the season, which is very, very rare for those two clubs. We don't get to play in those sort of environments very, very often. So
it sounds like the building blocks to a greater the development of this rivalry between Canterbury and the Dragons.
Well, it's always been a great rivalry. When I played in the 80s, and I know what the rivalry was. And they're two great clubs, two great supporter bases.
But it could be a real feature rivalry in the game.
Well, it is. It always has.
With respect to what you're talking about with Vegas and then a neutral ground.
So it made sense to us. And to be honest, our administrative staff and our management have worked pretty closely with the Dragons to make this work for both clubs. And for both sets of fans. And I think hopefully, and I'm sure they will, it'll be a great spectacle and a great game. From the football perspective, well, the two clubs have got a job to do. They're going there and fighting over 2 competition points and getting off to a good start to the season. And then comes the other part of that in getting over this game and coming home and recovering. If you remember the Panthers, who were 4-time premiership winners last year, went across and won their first game. They beat the Cronulla Sharks in a great game of footy to open the season. Came home and the first half of their season was pretty mediocre. So we don't want that to happen to us. The first year when they went across there, I think South and Brisbane played across there and had pretty poor seasons afterwards. Both lost their coaches at the back end of that season. So we wondered whether or not that was an effect of the travel, but we've worked into it, we've looked into it. We're all best preparation, everything that we can do, everything from meals, medical teams, training, recovery, preparation has been thought of.
That logistical stuff, is that all the domain of the clubs, or is there like a template in place from the NRL?
No, so when we went across last year, they were far better prepared than they were the first year. The first year they tended to leave it a little bit to the clubs to catch and kill their own.
Right.
And we got mixed reports back from those clubs about availability of grounds and gymnasiums and all that sort of thing as well. So, they were the pioneers. They went first, and obviously they were going to make the mistakes, or, the league was going to make its mistakes in year 1. In year 2, they were far better prepared. In year 3, they're pretty meticulous about what's going on. We spent a lot of time with actual NRL people over there in Vegas last year, so they took us around to the training venues, they took us around to the gyms, they took us around to the different eating spots and those sorts of things, showed us where the players would be staying, showed us the sort of environment that would be in, show us where it was in relation to everything else that was on the strip. Other things that we'd need local medical people in case there was emergencies and we needed access to hospitals or pharmaceuticals and all those sort of things as well. Security, all those sort of things. It's a whole range of things that you have to look into. Travel, transfers, buses, getting to training to and from on time. Make sure they're getting the right meals at the right time of day and eating the food that they're used to. And so it's a huge undertaking. And then, when the game's over, win, lose or draw, you've got to bounce out of bed and get up and go again and get ready to come back to Sydney and get ready for the next game. Now, we were then given a bye in round 2, right, as the draw fell. So we've actually got 3 weeks between our first game and our second game.
That's handy.
So we play in round 1. Well, the coach wasn't really happy with that because you actually want to get into the routine of playing football, and everything he'd planned was around that 2-week, getting home, recovering, getting ready for the following week.
Because if you're not familiar, listeners and viewers, that round 1 is split over 2 weeks.
Round 1 is split over 2 weeks.
The Vegas games and the rest of the round.
So you've got the first 2 games of round 1 are played in Vegas, and then the other 6 games are played over the next weekend, which means the Vegas teams get that extra week to recover. And then you go into round 2 the following week. Well, that round 2, we've got a bye.
Yeah.
So we don't play till the following week over that. And I think it's down against Canberra in Canberra. So it's going to be a big challenge for our team. And we've only gone in really with the one first grade trial, and that was only for about 50 or 60 minutes on the weekend. So we've got sort of 150, 60-minute preparation of NRL football. We don't play again for a fortnight against the Dragons, and then we don't play for 3 weeks after that. Now, I think it's a good thing, personally. I think it takes a lot of pressure off the recovery, takes a lot of pressure off injuries, and injuries that might be caused because you're travelling such a long way after the game. Big men sitting in seats and laying in beds and planes and long flights and all those sort of things that we've got to kind of guard against. So I think it's a good thing. Our coach didn't like it, but he's kind of warmed to it. Well, it is what it is anyway. We've got to get around it. So I think it's good. So I'm more than happy with that. But the thing now is to go to there and get the 2 points. That's our only focus from a football perspective, is to get there and play well, and it's an occasion, and it's an experience for our fans and everybody in our club. But our footballers have got to win a game. That's what they've got to do.
And you'll see it on 9. Bulldogs versus Dragons coming up Sunday, March 1, and of course the season opener is the Knights and the Cowboys.
So that opened up too. I think there was an announcement or some sort of speculation during the off-season around Peter Volandis saying he would like to replicate the Las Vegas experience in other cities around the world, and in fact play the entirety of round 1 in different capital cities around the world. London, Dubai, Japan, Hong Kong, et cetera, which is rather ambitious, but what a spectacle that would be. Can you imagine if we opened the season with a game in Las Vegas and then a game in New Zealand?
Well, the idea was to run concurrently, so it's over 24 hours.
Over 24 hours, and it just keeps going, or over a weekend anyway, 2 or 3 days. And then if you did that and gave everyone a bye for round 2 and didn't start round 2 for another fortnight, so that everyone gets across those flights, the time zones or what have you. I don't know whether it's logistically possible to do it.
Seems like a massive thing to do.
It would be a massive undertaking, but, what an ambitious promotion of your game, and, as time goes on, I mean, I won't live to see it, you will, but as time goes on, we need an Asian strategy. We need a European strategy. We need an English strategy for our game and the future of our game. And I keep saying we're on the doorstep of greater. It's got to start somewhere. The Vegas thing, at least it's started. You mightn't see the results of this for 20 years, but if they persevere and keep doing it, what a wonderful promotion it is for our game. To do something in Tokyo, to do something in Bangkok, to do something in Singapore, to do something in Beijing, to do something in Dubai.
Well, that's what Super League was going to do, Gus.
They're going to take the game to China.
Andrew Eddinghausen was going to be recognised in the main street of Beijing.
Yeah. Kerry Packer said, we haven't sold it to Melbourne yet.
Player movements. We'll pick up from where we left it off last episode. Manly, the big ones, Jamal Fogarty. Cherry Evans gone, Fogarty in. Kobe Hetherington, they say he's been tremendous.
Yeah, high work rate player. Playing with a lot of superstars up there at Broncos, but he's one of them real tradesmen, working men players, and that's a good pick up from Manly. It shows their thinking, to buy those really hard-working defensive style players, sometimes they're underestimated and undervalued, and I think that's a good pick-up for them. I think Fogarty, the Daly Cherry Evans thing played out the way it did. They've got that other young halfback boy who's played in the trials. Joey Walsh, who's got a future for sure, but in the interim, the experience of Fogarty, the season he had with the Raiders last year and what he's done for them, I think is a great pick-up, tremendous kicking game. And Luke Brooks, of course, and Tom Trbojevic. I mean, their spine, there's 1,000 games between those fellas, so they won't fail on the score of experience.
Go on, Turbo. We need a big season. No injuries.
Well, we say that every year, don't we?
Let's hope this is the year.
We wish him well.
The Dolphins. Morgan Knowles, who we saw play for England against Australia in the Ashes. They've picked up Brad Schneider from Penrith, but they've signed Selwyn Cobbo, who looks fit and firing, doesn't he?
Yeah, he looked good. He's making a comeback at a young age. He's a highly talented player. I hope he does well. And that's the sort of side that will suit him, their free-flowing style of attacking football and, the halfback that they got and the way they play the game, I think can really bring Cobbo and his strengths into the contest. He'll have plenty of competition for positions up there, though. They've got some really good young players coming through. Some of Queensland's best young junior talent.
Actually, you've been touting them for a while.
Is in the Dolphins club, and it's all just starting to poke its nose through it. It's starting to emerge, and over the next couple of years, I think their team will look decidedly different to what it is today. But right at the moment, they're just in that sweet spot where they've had a good season last year. Well, funny season last year. I mean, scored more points than any team in the competition, but also conceded too many in vital stages of the year as well. So,
last month.
But their forwards get a big bolster this year with Flegler and these fellas coming back. And they've all trialled well, which is good. It's hard work. They've got to get into the week-to-week grind. They've had all that time to get ready for one game. They've got to get ready for next week's game next week. So, Dolphins have done really well since their entry to the competition. Really well. I think, as a start-up, they've been absolutely outstanding and will only get better. And they've bought well. They've bought a couple of work rate players, an X-factor in Cobbo, and their own X-factors are only going to get better. Halfback's only going to get better. What a great player he is.
Well, yes, I was just going to say,
Am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to say he's a great player? I don't know.
The Gus rule. I love it. They couldn't sign the marquee player that they were looking for, yet they found one in Katoa. He's one of the game's marquee players.
It's always lovely when you produce your own. He's a marquee player, and you produce your own. Hopefully they keep him for 20 years. He's a
20 years?
Yeah, he's a 20-year NRL player, that boy. Well, they're playing till they're 37, 38 now. He went to them as a teenager, so, injuries and look after himself, and I'm sure he will. He's a long-term player.
Tab is giving you something to shout about this NRL season. With Tab's NRL My Offers, get personalised offers on every game this round. Download the Tab app for the NRL. Tab, we're on.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Now, Gus, the Roosters find themselves right in the mix again this year, don't they? With what they did last year,
right in the sweet spot,
rapid improvement from round one to the end.
Well, this time last year, I kept telling you they had a really good contingent of young players emerging, and that it would take time, and if they were patient, and it was a little bit rocky early, but you saw during the year, it doesn't take long. I think it takes less time for young players out of certain clubs to mature in the first grade environment, particularly when they've got good, strong players around them. And I think last year was an emerging year for the Roosters, and I think they recognised that, which is why they've signed Cherry Evans. They've signed Cherry Evans over a number of young halfbacks in their team who are also emerging. They're very strong in this position in the halves all the way through their grades.
They've also signed the incumbent New South Wales hooker.
Yep. So they've gone out and bought two very critical spine members to lead the way for this emerging young team, and they've got strength right across the park. I think last year, after only a few NRL games, Queensland picked a young fellow called Robert Toyer, and I said on this podcast, by the end of this Origin series, you will know what a great player Robert Toyer is, and he proved that, thankfully.
Absolutely, he did.
They've got a few more like that as well that are just about to emerge, and very, very strong. And they think it's strong enough that they've actually gone all in on 2026. They've gone all in. This is a Cooper Cronk moment. This is a Daly Cherry Evans has come over and said, "Well, Daly, you need to come over and steer these kids around and win us a comp." That's where they think they are at the moment. They're extremely confident about winning this premiership. Extremely confident, and that's when Roosters
justifiably so.
Yeah, I think so. Well, that's when Roosters are at their best, when they're really confident in what they're doing. And every team's going to go through some little ups and downs, but Roosters have shown, like the Melbourne Storm and the Panthers, there's not much difference between their best and their worst because they've always got good kids coming through. They run a good recruitment program. They run a great development program as well. They've got some outstanding young kids in their juniors still coming through, but they feel they're in a sweet spot, and you'd have to agree with them. That's why they've gone all in on these two playmakers, the hooker and the halfback. Cherry Evans particularly, like long-serving Manly player, and what is he, 37 years of age, but they've said, no, we need you. They see him holding up the trophy at the end of the year.
Now, make of this what you will, but they did some promotional stuff going back a couple of weeks with he and Sam Walker. Walker's wearing 7, Cherry Evans is wearing 6. Does it matter who wears what?
No, doesn't matter.
They both play on the same side of the field, though, don't they?
Well, Cherry Evans has played on the right side all his life. I don't think they're going to be moving him to the left. And at the back end of last year, young Sam played a fair bit on the left. Okay. So I think, I don't know what this is going to do for Sam's development, but they'll work it out. It's team first, club first, team second mentality. You've got to do what's right for your club and your coach and your team. And it'll be a good education for Sam. And Sam's got a long way to go. He's still only young. He's got another 10, 12 years in him. And to play with Cherry Evans at this stage of his career, I guess will be something special for him. How they handle the 6-7 role, well, we'll find out in round 1. But Cherry Evans is very, very experienced, and Sam Walker's played plenty of NRL football now and is a unique talent. He's a instinctive, unique, he's not a game managing type player.
No.
Which is what I expect they get from Cherry Evans or what they're looking for in Cherry Evans.
Which makes Walker even more dangerous.
Walker is a points creating machine. He's a money printer. That's what he is.
A money printer?
He's a money printer.
They've got a few of them at the Roosters.
He's a money printer, Sam Walker. He prints money.
Fitting well there.
He makes everyone more valuable because he just brings the team to life. They score more. They score tries other teams just can't hope to score.
Yeah,
They beat teams by big scores that you cannot replicate. With the unique attacking instincts that he has and the vision that he has. He makes some mistakes. He doesn't always get it right, but when it comes off, some days he's got it on a string and they're scoring from everywhere. He's got kick targets left and right, and he's got, 2 great centres, and he's got, big forwards, and he's got Cherry Evans worrying about the mechanics of the team, and he can just go out and play what he plays. And in this day and age where everything is biased towards attacking football and 6 agains and big tackle, like it's virtually 10 and 12 tackle football these days, the way the 6 agains. Don't start me on 6 agains.
No, we won't go there.
You never went with that rule change last week. That's the one you left out. You knew you'd upset me, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, they've moved it to the 20, haven't they? Yep.
Anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, Roosters, they're in the window. They're definitely in the window. And what's more important, they know it. So they're going to be hard to beat.
So back to last season, you mentioned in our previous episode that the Panthers didn't come back from Vegas at all well. They were last at the midpoint of the season, yet they were leading 14-0 in a grand final qualifier up at Suncorp. Speaking of confidence, they must be going into this year absolutely chomping at the bit.
Yeah. Well, let's just go back to the comment about Vegas, because we put a lot of study into that, particularly them being 4-time defending premiers and whether or not the Vegas thing was the cause. And I don't think Vegas had anything to do with it.
Okay.
And that's the way we determined it. And I don't think, I just think it was probably a few changes too many from the previous season. And the fact that a lot of their star players have been up for a long time, eventually it had to take its toll. And it just probably, just restricted them a little bit mentally in the early part of the season. And by their own admission, they weren't coping, and they had to get back to what they knew and the sort of football that they knew. And they did. And once they did, and they got it right towards the middle of the season, and some of the early games they should have won too. Like, they were only beaten narrowly in a lot of games, and they were going down fighting. They weren't just giving up and getting beaten. So we saw it more as a mental thing and personnel change than the after effects of Vegas, because they handled Vegas very, very well. So we were satisfied that the first half of the season wasn't Vegas related. It was more just how much top-class football their top players have been playing, representative football, grand finals, back-to-back, season after season after season.
It had to catch up at some stage.
It had to catch up at some stage, and it did. but it didn't slow them up for very long because the back half of the season, by the time they started to put 3 and 4 together, everyone went, uh-oh.
They put 9 together.
Yeah, here they come. And it didn't look like ending. And then strategically, they rested all their players with a couple of rounds to go to get ready for a finals assault. They went into the finals and they won in New Zealand. They beat the Bulldogs. And then, as you say, the team that won the comp, they had them down 14-0 at halftime in Brisbane. Now, I think in that game, you could see that they were just getting to the end of it. They'd made a long, long, hard run. And Broncos... Well, Reece Walsh, he just had that brilliance about him that could pull games out of the fire. And they did it with a kick from the sideline in the 78th minute. So that's how they went down. They went down fighting. They gave up their title in the ring. They didn't give it up anywhere else. And I think that will just steel them now for a good preparation this year. They have to be one of the front runners. As I say, they've still got half a dozen of the best players in their positions in the world in their team. I think they'll be much freshened for the off-season that they've had. And the other players that have come in over the last couple of years, and particularly like Blaise Talangis and these fellas, are going to be far better for the experience. The new players to their club last year are going to be far better for that experience. And given other clubs, there is a general dilution of talent across the league, I think, this year. They're right up there, I think, as premiership favourites at the moment, and deservedly so. They'll be extremely hard to beat, and I'm expecting a really big bounce-back factor from them on what they showed in the early half of the season last year.
So they picked up 3 Warriors players. Tom Ale, Kalani Going, who was the New South Wales Cup Player of the Year last year. They've signed Freddie Lussick as backup at hooker, and they've got Jack Cogger back. So I'd like to have that veteran sort of half in the system.
Yeah, they've bought players strategically to fill holes that they might be able to fill from their younger players coming through. And you've got to understand too that because of the system they've had, and they've had so many, marquee players in their roster for so long, it's not only do they get picked off by players at the top, but a lot of their junior rep teams have been picked apart too, because people see them, they want to buy them out of that system, and those kids realise too that their pathway's probably blocked a little bit, and they're not going to get to the NRL as quickly as they can. So they've all suddenly filtered out. Managers have taken them out to other clubs too. So that creates a little bit of a void in their development systems getting through to first grade as well. Probably saw it a little bit in the trial the other day when they played the Cowboys. Now, normally they can pick a reserve grade side or a team of kids that are very, very competitive with NRL sides. Well, it was very, very different the other night when they played the Cowboys in the trial. Good experience for them, but I think the Panthers' top 30 this year looks really strong.
Blaise Talangis with some time in the saddle too.
He's a good player. He's a good player.
That was a totally new combination.
As
you say, Luai leaving, they had to fill a huge hole.
A huge hole. But you look at it, you got Dylan Edwards and you got Tom Jenkins, who had a great season last year, Isaac Tungor, Alamonte, Brian To'o, Blaise Talangis, Nathan Cleary, Moses Leota, Mitch Kenny, Lindsay Smith.
Casey McLean? You mentioned him.
Yeah, this is a team they've named for the weekend. I'm just looking,
right.
Yeah, so Casey played in the All-Stars game on the weekend, So Lindsay Smith, Isaiah Papali'i, Kalani Going's going to run, Isaiah Yeo. They've got some really good young kids coming through. I mean, there's Sakura Clark, I really like him, Jackson Edgar, Sione Fanua. There are some really good young kids coming through there. Young Jira Lydiard is a good young kid. Harry Armstrong is a young back rower up there, got a big opinion of. Am I allowed to be saying that? I don't know. Anyway.
Not if you're playing signing him.
So look, it's a really strong roster again and matches any roster in the league. I think they're premiership favourites.
All right, let's whip through a couple of those other teams. With the greatest of respect, the Warriors, they've signed Lofi Khan Pereira, who was the leading try scorer going back 2 years and couldn't get a run permanently last year. But the main thing with the Warriors is they get Luke Metcalf back and Mitch Barnett back on the park.
2 big ones, 2 big ins. And that's your premiership season too. It's a long, hard grind, and if you get an injury to the wrong player at the wrong time, it can change your fortunes at the back end of the year. Some teams are better equipped to get over that than others, and for most of the clubs, you need your best players available on the big day at the back end of the season to get it done. You lose a few, and it can really change your fortunes. But the more times you go there, the more players experience it, the more your younger players get a feel of it, the better they come back the following year. Yeah, they're well served. The Warriors have been really good. They've got some outstanding young talent coming through their pathway system. Outstanding young talent. You know, getting them back in the junior rep competitions and in the New South Wales Cup over the last few years has been important to the building and the longevity and the sustained success of that club. And they've got some outstanding young talent coming through.
Looking at the Sharks, they haven't signed anyone. I think that they might have picked up a couple of lower graders.
Didn't need to.
Yeah,
didn't need to. They run a good development program, and they've got some good young kids coming through. But their first grade side has been knocking on the door for several seasons now, haven't they? Haven't quite nailed it at the back end of the season, but I would say incrementally better every year. Every year they've made a better fist of the finals. If you keep turning up, sooner or later you're going to have your day. So they'll be thereabouts again, well coached. Good side.
The Premiers. Grant Anderson, good signing. Tom Duffy from the Cowboys. Ulbeck's Taufa, he goes good. He's only had a handful of games for the Dolphins. They've lost Tyson Smoothie to England. They've lost Selwyn Cobbo, of course, to the Dolphins. Jock Madden's gone back to the Tigers. Kobe Hetherington. Fletcher Baker's gone to Canterbury. Oh, they lost young Kobe Black. He was their up-and-coming half. He's gone to Canberra. Well, they got Reece Walsh.
Yeah. Oh, lucky they had him on grand final day, weren't they? What an extraordinary game that was. I mean, we didn't get to do a podcast after the grand final, but just reflecting back now, and my memory's not that good, but at halftime, Melbourne led 26-12 or something like that, or 24-12 or something or other. And I remember saying on the panel at halftime, it looks like Melbourne can score every time they've got the ball. They're extremely confident. And, you know, probably against any other team, I think they'd have run away with that game. But I did make the point that Melbourne had not put two halves of football together all season last year, that they had often gone out to big leads at half-time and not played anywhere near as well in the second half. And in the first half of that grand final, Reece Walsh had come up with two big plays, and when he got his hands on the ball, he's extremely dangerous. And I said, if Melbourne don't back up their first half with a second half performance, Reece Walsh is still someone that could pull their pants down. Well, he did. It was one of the more phenomenal big game performances we've seen from any individual player. Can't do it without teammates, of course, but he saved tries, he scored tries, he set up tries, and he made the difference. It's extraordinary to have something like that in your midst. You know, the two experienced halves in Hunt and Reynolds ended up getting hurt on the day, Reynolds, and had to come off, but they still managed to run down the Melbourne Storm, who were very experienced at grand final football, and score an amazing victory. So,
do you know, I reckon that try, I reckon that's the favourite try I've ever called.
Which one?
The Reece Walsh try.
Before half-time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because where we're sitting there, like, we've got the best seat in the house everywhere, but he started, he recognised there was no marker, and he was kind of just meandering behind the play of the ball, but as soon as he saw that, he just exploded. Yeah. And I saw it all unfold.
Speed is power.
It was just absolutely phenomenal.
Speed is power, and footwork is power, and when you've got fellas like that can bounce off both feet as quickly as he can, it's hard to set yourself at any moment. When you've got to make a tackle on someone running that fast and that hard, at some stage you've actually got to, you know, set yourself to step into the tackle, and it's really hard with people like that because the timing is impossible, and you find yourself clutching, and that's what happened with them, and he beat them all. He was so aggressive on the day.
Yeah.
I was sitting on the Channel 9 panel in the south-western corner where he saves a try when Pappenhausen makes a break down the right-hand side of the field in the corner.
Was that late in the game?
Late in the game.
He just threw himself at him.
And he threw himself at Pappenhausen and knocked Pappenhausen into touch. And by this time there was dew on the ground. And Pappenhausen sliding towards me, sitting on the panel, down where we are in that. And I didn't think he was going to pull up. I thought he was going to slide right into us, you know. And not only did Reece Walsh make the tackle and push him into touch, but then ran over and gave him a gobful before running back into the field to play. He was so intense.
He's in the zone.
He was so intense that he was going to change that result on his own, and he did. When he saved the try later in the game where they made a break down the right and they turned it back into Pappenhausen and he made the tackle, he was so aggressive. That collision, like I was 30 metres away, you could feel the collision. Now, I saw Reece Walsh as a teenager. He wasn't like that in defence. But all of a sudden, this will and this power and this belief, it is phenomenal. He's a superstar. I've been saying
It says a bit about him. There's more than just the whole, the showmanship to him. Like there's a real will and determination.
Yeah, I had the pleasure to see him when he first come to the Warriors. I used to go up there and watch him train. I was there the first day he trained with the Warriors, and I've told this story before up the Central Coast. And just in that day, I went superstar, absolute superstar. And, they're going to make their mistakes. They're kids. They have their ups and downs. They've got to deal with the limelight. They've got to deal with the money. They've got to deal with the expectation. They've got to deal with making errors and people trying to rein in their creativity or rein in their instinctiveness. And, some coaches will coach that out of them or want to coach that out of them. Some coaches will get impatient with it. But in the end of the day, he has bowed to no one. He's backed down to no one. He's just been unashamedly himself and what he wants to be. And where it comes out is on a day like that. And then you're glad you didn't coach it out of him.
And the great news is he's diversified into the plumbing industry as well, so he's got a side hustle.
Well, I've been drinking out of toilets for 6 months. It hasn't done much for me, but I'm willing to persevere because...
Just keep on gulping that toilet water.
I'm gonna keep doing it.
Melbourne Storm. They've signed Manaia Waiteri from the Raiders. They picked up Trent Talau, who played really well in the All-Stars game on the weekend. They've signed Davey Moali, great signing. But they've signed a bloke, Gus, that I reckon might end up being the signing of the season.
Wow.
Jack Hetherington.
Big
He
Jack.
could jump out of his skin down there.
Yeah. I think he'll appreciate the Melbourne Storm, and I think the Melbourne Storm will appreciate him. I think that's an inspired recruitment decision. Not a lot of clubs would have taken the plunge, but you got to remember too, Craig Bellamy, I think, played with his father many years ago at Canberra. I think there would be some sort of family relation there. And Melbourne Storm have a history of this, of making really prudent, strategic purchases of players that, some clubs might have thought have run their race. Jack Hetherington has always been a supreme athlete, an absolute elite athlete, all right? His brain can't keep up with his legs sometimes, and that's been his problem throughout his life. But I love Jack. I've loved him from the day I first met him. I went down to Young with Jimmy Jones to meet him and his grandfather many years ago. And Bill Mullins was living down at Young there, and Jack Hetherington is his grandson. Met him many years ago. And
how old was Jack then?
Jack would have been 17 or 18, 17 years of age. I wanted to recruit him to Penrith, and old Billy was, of course, an old Rooster, and he kept ringing the Roosters and they weren't returning his call. And I tried for 12 months to get Jack Hetherington to come to Penrith, but he didn't want to leave Young where he was at the time, and I think old Billy really wanted him to go to the Roosters. And I said to Billy, if you really want to go to the Roosters, I'll get him to the Roosters for you. And I rang Nick Politis, and Nick signed him straight away. But as luck would have it, 2 years later he came to us at Panthers and started out there and debuted out there. But
I don't reckon he's got anywhere near what he can do. Like he's come close to realising his potential.
And that's no one's fault but Jack's. And Jack will admit that. But I went up and saw him. He rang me up halfway through last year. He was struggling a little bit and he was just looking for someone to talk to. So I took a day up and drove up to Newcastle and sat down, had a coffee with him and just had a chat about life. He's married, he's got 2 kids now, he's a completely different kid. He felt he was trying hard and training hard, and I said, well, sometimes it just doesn't come straight away, sometimes you've just got to persevere. Perseverance, 90% of this game is to keep turning up, on and off the field, just to keep turning up and doing your thing, and suddenly the breaks will come. And he got back into the first grade side, fought back and got his jersey back in there. And he worked hard to do that. That's all him doing that. And Newcastle was struggling a little bit at the time, and that doesn't help individuals either. But all of a sudden you get a lifeline like this to go to the Melbourne Storm. This is his real chance.
Oh, absolutely.
This is absolute his chance, because you know what? He's not going to have to worry about doing anything more than just being Jack Hetherington and doing what Jack Hetherington can do. He's been a player without a position. He's been a player without direction for a long time. But he's a wonderful kid. He's a lovely kid. He's a funny kid. He's a funny kid. I could tell you a lot of Jack's stories, but I'm cheering for him. I thought that was a really inspired recruitment decision by the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah. I reckon he'll go.
He was at the Bulldogs when I first arrived there back
Yeah.
in 2021. Jack, I love Jack. And as I say, I saw him as a 17-year-old, and he's always been an elite athlete. And Craig Bellamy just has a way of giving them direction and giving them purpose and giving them a role that they can do. And Jack won't have to worry too much about strategy or game plans or anything
Which is
like
probably
that.
a good thing.
Well,
All right. The Canberra Raiders have lost Jamal Fogarty, but they've signed Jaden Brayley. They've signed Sione Finau, who's a willing winger from the Dragons. They've got Dane Laurie in there as a bit of backup around the halves. I reckon he played halfback on the weekend. They've also signed Kobe Black from the Broncos. A lot of people saying Fogarty gone. It might be hard for the Raiders to back up from last year. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's a loss in games and experience and an element of the game that's very important this year, which is accurate, reliable, relentless kicking game, which he provides. You know, that you look at all the good halves these games, what we call game managing and what people call game managing halves these days. And, you know, I've sort of gone away from that term. I think most of the game management is done by the coaches these days. I think a lot of the football is very much premeditated and it's very mechanical. And, you know, player instinct takes over from that. But so far as the kicking games of teams, it's all pretty identical. And you need someone who can consistently keep doing that, and that's what Fogarty provides, which is why he'll be good for the Manly Seagulls. He'll replace Cherry Evans' game in that regard. But down in Melbourne, they've got a couple of youngsters there. You know, it's an invitation to work hard on their game and get it right. You know, Ricky Stewart will get them in the right direction. I still see Canberra Raiders. The thing I liked about them last year, they were fast and they were fit. And in the trials that I've seen, they were fast and they were fit. So,
And to borrow a well-used cliche, they were together.
they are. You know, the connectivity and that with the team is such a big issue. That's the big word these days. Sorry, the Raiders are the Raiders. Good sides, good forwards, good backs, good strike power, plenty of speed. KO Weeks can only get better.
How good was he?
They're a dangerous footy team. They're never out of it. They're never out of a game. I've said about the Canberra Raiders, they can be 20 in front and not safe. They can be 20 behind and not out of the game. They're just one of those really good footy teams that have got the ability to score a lot of points. And on their day, they're extremely hard to beat. Well, they were minor premiers last year against all predictions.
Well, had they have won that first final with the most
they did win
stupid game ever, they won it 3 times.
They did win it. They win it 3 times. It's funny. I'm not talking out of school here, but during the off-season, I got invited out to Randwick races for an afternoon in a corporate box, and Ricky Stewart was there, and I was having a talk with him, and we were just having a bit of a natter about different things and not anything. And he turned around at one stage there. We hadn't been talking football at all, and he turned around at one stage and he said to me, "Could you believe that semi-final? Like it was still eating at him." And I said, "Well, I didn't think we were going to talk football." I said, "But I've never seen anything like that.
No.
I've never seen anything like that where a team has celebrated victory 3 times
It was ridiculous.
and having it taken away from them."
They were never going to get over it.
And it kind of gets swept under the carpet, you know, but it was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. They won that game. And then the whole course of the season changes if they do.
They might have won the comp.
They might have. They might have gone on to win that comp. But as it turned out, they didn't. But it was still bugging him then.
Oh, I don't know you ever get over something like that.
Yeah, you could see it. You could see the pain. He said, "Can you believe it?" And I said, "Well, it happened." I said, "I can't believe it." I said, I've never seen anything like that in my life."
No.
You know, but there was so much great football during the final series. We sort of it probably didn't get as much play as it should have at the time. But it
was. I'd never seen it. I'd never been involved in anything like
you
that.
know, our game brings that on itself at sometimes. But they won that game.
I threw the news 3 times.
They won that game. They won that game. Simple as that.
All right. So with thanks to the Tab, who sponsor us here on 6 Tackles with Gus. Great to have them on board for 2026, and they're giving the punters plenty to shout about this NRL season. Download the Tab app. Tab, we are on.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Here's some predictions for Gus for the season ahead. Give me, and Canterbury, you can take Canterbury out of this, okay? Give me your top 4 contenders.
premiership contenders.
Yep.
I think Panthers deservedly favourites. I think Roosters are right in that window. The Broncos, provided they come down off the pedestal of last year and keep their players fit and healthy, have got to be a contender. And the fourth one, it's a little bit up for grabs. You know, your Melbourne Storms, your Sharks, those sort of clubs are always going to be thereabouts. Dolphins have got the potential to jump up into that echelon of teams. You know, a team like Parramatta wouldn't surprise if they keep fit and well and keep playing the brand of football that they've got. But I think, again, there is a levelling in this competition. I said last year the bottom four teams were the best bottom four teams I'd ever seen in our competition for a long time. And I think there is potential for any of those teams to get on a good run with good momentum and play finals football this year. I think the top three are probably really standouts, to be honest, and then probably another 3 or 4 teams just below them. And then the rest of the competition is pretty even and not far behind. So injuries will play a part. New style of football and new rules will play a part. You know, one of the factors this year will be the constant nipping away of Perth and, you know, rumours around signings and players being off contract and clubs, you know, organising their rosters, and that can be distracting as well. But I think they're the major contenders. I think Panthers and Roosters and Broncos probably a little bit above the others. Melbourne Storm have got some players to replace, but they always do. Sharks have been thereabouts. You know, your Dolphins, your Parramatta, Manly. Am I missing an obvious? Oh, Raiders, obviously, last year's minor premiers. Am I missing one in particular there?
Yeah, your own club, but you can leave them out. I was going to ask you about the two, if there's a bolter, but I think you've answered that. I was thinking Parramatta in putting this question together, but you've mentioned the Dolphins there as well. Parramatta,
Dolphins, Warriors are another team that have been up there the last... look, there's Newcastle. South. If all those great players stay fit and hungry, they can beat anyone.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's no real bottom to this competition. I don't see teams that can't win games. I don't see teams that just can't compete. I've seen anyone being able to beat anyone, but to play in the top 4, you've got to be able to beat the good sides on their good day as well. And, you know, that's where the upper sides have sort of got it on everyone at the moment. But, you know, it won't take much to close the gap.
Are the Tigers going to make the finals?
Tigers are the ones that can make the finals. The 8's impossible. I've got, you know, probably
17 teams.
17 teams that can make the 8.
Lastly, give us a few players that you're most looking forward to watching.
Most looking forward to watching. Okay, who am I looking forward to watching? I'm looking forward to see how Cherry Evans goes at the Roosters and his combination with Sam Walker. I'm looking at the further development of Blaze Talangi as a key part of that great team at the Panthers. I want to see how Reece Walsh and the Broncos bounce back from their season last year. I want to see how the Warriors go now that Metcalf and Barnett are back in that side, because they were going extremely well before their injuries last year. Tigers are always a great watch. Parramatta and the coach and the teams there. So, yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. There are some outstanding young players emerging in the competition, and I think the game's in good shape. And just looking forward to the season in general.
And just lastly, what's your New South Wales Origin team? No, I'm only joking. Enjoy Vegas. I hope you're having a wonderful time over there now.
A man who doesn't drink and gamble can't get in any trouble.
You just behave yourself, along with the rest of the team. Thanks, Gus. That's episode 2 of 6 Tackles with Gus for 2026. Thanks to Tab, and we look forward to chatting next week.